Welcome to the objective review of the cult classic movie, The Last Dragon. And in objective review, I like to break a movie down into 6 categories and assign weights to them depending on the genre to give the most unbiased, honest, objective opinion as possible. And that's an issue with this movie. I have no idea what genre this movie belongs in. I mean, it has fantastical elements to it, a little bit of drama, comedy, action. So I'm just going with the straight average for this one. This movie is probably one of the hardest movies if I had to review because this is legit one of my favorite movies of all time. So let's get started with a question. What is your favorite guilty pleasure movie? Mine's have to be probably The Last Dragon. So let's get started with story.
A martial arts champion in search of the glow.
Master, I need more time.
In The Last Dragon, we follow Leroy Green, aka Bruce Leroy, because everyone calls him Bruce Leroy. Even for a long time, I thought his name was legit Bruce Leroy, which confused me. He's training in the arts of Kung Fu, and he's kind of hit a wall here. He's hit a plateau where he has to find a new master that can teach him how to reach this new level. And the character of Bruce Leroy, he's kind of this shy, unassuming 19-year-old boy in the 80s. Like he doesn't really get into music, doesn't really get into dancing, doesn't really get into girls. He's kind of an outcast. In the opposition, we have Shonuff, who is the baddest, meanest mofo this side of Harlem. Really, his motivation is simple. He just wants to prove that he's the baddest, so he just wants to fight. He's been hearing these stories about Bruce Leroy catching bullets with his teeth, and he needs to beat him to prove that he's the baddest. In the middle there, we have a few characters who just kind of caught in the crossfire. We have Laura, who's like a DJ / singer, dancer, TV host of like a show sort of similar to Soul Train. And she always gets in all this trouble with this one business guy because this business guy wants her to show his girlfriend's music and then his girlfriend can blow up, but she doesn't want to do that. And so they get in altercations and Bruce Leroy oftentimes comes around to save them. You have Shonuff teaming up with the business guy and just how all that unfolds. That's pretty much the story. I did like seeing Bruce Leroy's growth in the story. He does go from being that shy and assuming one character to being so sure of himself that, you know, he can find the master kind of within himself and reach another level. I will say though, to be honest, the story is it's not all that compelling, but it's serviceable. So I give it a 7 out of 10. That's on to emotions.
I know what it's like to lose precious things.
And there's really not all that much emotion in this movie at all. I will say this, that the movie does make me feel good. It does make me root for this character. Not all movies can do that, but I have to give this a 6.5 out of 10. That's on to action.
The Kung Fu master. I am no master.
You sure look like a master to me.
And the action in this movie, I think, is really solid. I feel like they're using real martial arts moves. I mean, the main character, he is a legit martial arts expert. And they don't do that weird, you know, cut scenes, quick cuts that they do nowadays to make actions feel more alive and vibrant. So you really get a full picture of what's going on. And I really enjoyed that. The action wasn't so enthralling or intricate. Now, the last fight is absolutely amazing, but I don't think it's really due to the action. I think it's more so due to the storytelling capabilities of the director. So for action, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. This is on to comedy.
Yeah. Bows down to your master. Yeah, coolie. Kiss my Converse.
Now, I forgot just how hilarious this movie was. And I've watched this movie like 8 times, but there's comedy from everyone in this movie. I really enjoy the comedy from the sidekick character who does not know how to fight like at all, but he kind of does that Will Smith thing where he's like, if you just act crazy, and people will think you crazy, and you know, you don't want to mess with a crazy person. There was also a lot of great slapstick humor, and Shonuff, I think, was funny in this movie, even though he wasn't really trying to be. Just his interactions with people was hilarious. Also, Bruce Leroy did a good job. I mean, he was funny, but kind of in an awkward way funny. So really enjoyed that aspect of it. For comedy, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Loved it. Next on to acting.
Now, when I say, who's the master? You say, Shonuff.
Now, there's gonna be no Oscars at all. Granted, this movie was made before I was even born, but there was no Oscars in for it. But that's okay. I do think there are some standout performances, mostly by Julius Carey, who plays Shonuff. I mean, this guy just goes for it and he lands it and he sticks it. and the movie would not be the movie without him. Just love his performance. He completely sells that he is the baddest, the meanest mofo in all of Harlem. Also, the actor who plays the main character, Timok, this was his first acting job, and I thought that he did a good job. And maybe because he had kind of had the easy character that I think fits him mostly, because Bruce Leroy is unassuming. He is kind of unsure of himself, and I think having a new actor helps that. Everyone else pretty much plays stereotypical archetype characters in the 80s. For acting, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next is on to directing.
This is Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon.
Now, one thing to know about the directing or producing behind the scenes movie, this movie was produced by Berry Gordy, who is the legit founder of Motown music. Like, he's pretty much the founder of modern day music as we know it. Music in this movie was amazing, and the pacing was good. The directing job of actually getting you enthralled in the scenes. Like I mentioned, that last fight scene between Sho'nuff and between Bruce Leroy, like, it's not the action within that. It's not the hand-to-hand fighting that's great, but it's the telling of the story within the action scene. Like, it really reminds me a lot of Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Z also plays a little bit of a role in this. I feel like Bruce Leroy went Super Saiyan before Goku did. So, hey, know your black history, I guess. But in that last fight, it's really all about that story, about that power struggle between good and evil, and being unsure of yourself. Like, he did a really good job of doing that. It reminded me so much of watching an anime, watching the manga, when like a character's beaten down and trying, and he has like flashbacks and thinking about all the people who's lifted him up and how that energizes him to really take over the fight. So I thought the directing was done really well in this movie. I mean, the cinematography is not great, but it's fine. So for directing, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. That brings us to our straight average score of a 7.6 out of 10. Like I said, I had to be very objective in this movie because this is legit one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I've owned this on DVD. But you can watch it on Netflix right now. It was just released, and it is a great watch on Netflix. The quality is a little bit better there than you would get watching DVD. But I implore you to watch this movie, even though it's not necessarily a great movie, but it's a great watch. Let me know what your thoughts are on the movie. Let me know what your favorite guilty pleasure movie is. And sincerely, thank you for watching. I'm out.